Hello guys and welcome to Iron Coding. Today we're gonna build this amazing to-do web app using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So let's see the features of our web app. I'm gonna add a to-do. This is a to-do. I can also add like this. This is another add, and when I click on this check mark, it is making it as done. When I click on this, I can edit this. When I click on this delete all, it will delete all my to-dos. So let's create it. At a desktop, create a new folder and name it anything as you want. I'm naming it to-do app. Okay. Open this folder on your VS Code. So I'm opening this on my VS Code. Now I'm gonna create three major files that will be index.html, style.css and index.js. Okay, I'm also gonna add a live server here, so let's add this here. Now if this option is not showing in your VS Code, you can check this out on extension, search live preview and install this one, which is from Microsoft. Okay, now just create a boilerplate for our HTML code. Give it a title of to-do app. Now link two files on the header tag. Okay, I'm gonna use a link tag with CSS and also script src as index.js. Okay, and I'm using a keyword defer. Okay, just side it. I'm gonna create a section here. In this section, I'm gonna add a heading 2 element and name it to do app. Give it some class to do, make a div, create a class called input. In this input class, create a input tag, class input field id to do input, give it a placeholder, add a new to do. Now in this div, create a button, give it a class name btn, make it add. Now after this div, create an order list, give it a class scroll, make a list, give it a id, says to do list. Now create another div after this unordered list, make a horizontal row, so I'm using hr, give it a class counter. Now after this, create another div, give it a class counter container. Okay, now let's create a paragraph tag here. So I'm creating a paragraph tag here and making a span, and in this span I'm giving it a id to do count, and this span I'm inserting a 0. After this paragraph tag, create a button, so btn, give it a id that says delete button and name it delete all. Now our HTML thing is completed. Let's design this. So in your style.css file, create a root, and give it some property like gradient. Gradient would be a linear gradient, and give it subgradient like 180 degrees, comma RGBA 45 112 1253, comma 0.73, and that would be 0%, comma a color code 163E92 and make it 100%. Now just wrap this thing here. Okay, now it should work properly. Now create another element, so I'm creating a dark and give it 001747 gray would be b1 ba cb, gray border rgba 210 comma 0.75, gray light, so gray light would be gray dark 405175, blue 2d 70ft, green 00 D8 A7, and the last one would be white. Okay, now start with our body. So select the body tag and give it a background of variable gradient. So here it is, save this. Okay, after this give it a margin of 0, give it a height of 100 VH, display flex. Flex direction would be column, so column, justify content, space between. Okay, let's make it space evenly. Align item center, font family sans serif. So font family sans serif. Taste this. Okay, gradient spelling is wrong. Okay, after the font family, just select the dot btn, give it a color, that would be variable white. Font size, so font size would be 1 rem, give it a padding 0.7 rem by 1.5 rem, give it a border radius of 0.3 rem, give it a border as none. Now just select our all headings. So I'm gonna add h1, h2, h3, h4, h5 and h6, and also a p tag. Give it a margin of 0. Okay, now I'm gonna edit this to do, give it a flex as a display. Flex direction would be column, justify content center, or maybe space around, looks great. Okay, border radius 2 rem, background where white, background would be white, padding 3 rem, height would be 50%, width would be 60%, and give it some box shadow. So box shadow would be 0, 1 rem, 3 rem, RGBA 0, 2, 3, 71, 0.15. Okay, give it a max width of 30 rem. After this select the h2, give it text transform as uppercase, height would be 3 rem, color would be dark, so where dark, text align would be center, padding 20 pixels. Let's make a padding with bottom. Yeah, it looks better. Now select the input field, so I'm gonna get the dot input class and give it a position as a relative, display as flex, justify content, space between. Okay, now select the input field, so I'm gonna get the input dot field, display flex, width would be 100%, border 0.06 would be great, 6 not 5, solid, and give it a color code like D2, 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 BF. Okay, after this border give it a padding of 1 rem, font size 1 rem. Okay, after this select the input, and input select the type equals to text, and here select the placeholder and change it a bit. So I'm giving it a color with var gray. Okay, nice. Now select to do container, to do hyphen container, give it a flex, gap would be 1 rem. Now select the unordered list, padding would be 0, not padding would be 0, margin would be 0, overflow from y would be scroll. Okay, so it is giving me a scroll bar here. Li, display flex direction. Okay, not flex direction would be column, gap would be 1.2 rem, rem, padding would be 1.3 rem. Now select from id to do list and paragraph, give it a display flex, gap with 1 rem, color a dark one, align item, center. Now select the to do list dot disabled. Okay, color. Okay, so color would be a color code something like 8F98A8. Okay, now select the disable property, give it a flex. Text decoration would be line through. Now select the checkbox, so I'm taking the input, type text, so type text. Okay, I'm checking the type checkbox. Before, give it some content, so content would be something like start with 2713. Okay, display inline block, width 2 rem, height also 2 rem, font size would be 1.7 rem, text align center, border 0.06 rem, solid and where gray border. Okay, it is. Give it a border radius of 50 pixels, 50% would be nice. Color transparent. Now again select the checkbox, so input with type checkbox, checked. Okay, then before, give it some color, where white, background color, where green, border as 0.06 rem, solid and green, so it would be where green, border radius 50%. Okay, after this select the container, so I'm selecting the counter, not container. Give it some border like 0.06 rem, solid and where as gray light. Okay, it is. Now select the container, then select the counter container, give it a height of 2 rem, give it display flex, justify content space between. Okay, color would be gray, so where gray. Okay, now in counter container, select the paragraph tag, align self as center. Okay, now in again container, counter container, select the button, border would be none, background color would be transparent, color would be gray, so color would be where gray. Okay, font size, give it a font size of 1 rem, cursor would be cursor pointer. Okay, now select the hover effect, so dot container, dot counter container, select the button. Now set the hover properties, text decoration as underline. Now select the scroll, give it a height of 15 rem, scroll bar width would be thin. Now select the scroll, give it some WebKit scroll bar, give it a width 0.6 rem. Again select the scroll, select the WebKit scroll bar thumb, so WebKit scroll bar, and here it is. Give it some background color, where blue, so where blue. Okay, border, okay, not border, border radius would be 0.5 rem. Again select the scroll, select the WebKit scroll bar track, WebKit scroll bar and track. Display this as none, not flex, display the none. Okay, now you can see the color is not appearing properly. Let's fix that. Okay, so for this one, if we are using a gradient color palette, so we need to remove this color, so it is working properly. Now just set this with a button. Now add a new property here and give it a color of where blue. In this dot button class, add this new line, background color where blue. Okay, now it's looking proper. Now you can see here we can only see the 0. It's not looking good, so add something like 0 items, 0 items total. Okay, yeah, or I can just total items, 0 total items, something like that. Let's build the functionality part or the JavaScript part for this. So just get into index.js and start building these things. Now I'm using the local storage to store the data of my to-do apps. So yeah, let's get the let to do equals to json dot parse and parse the local storage dot get item and add the to do or a blank array. Now const to do input equals to document dot get element by id and select the to do input. Now const to do list equals to document dot get element by id and select the to do list. Again create a const, not const to do count equals to document dot get element by id and now select the to do count. Const add button equals to document dot get element by id. Okay, let's use the query selector because I want to change that thing. So query selector and give it a dot button class. Const delete button equals to document dot get element by id. Give it a class name. Oh, give it a id. Delete button. Okay, now just add a event listener. So document dot add event listener on the DOM. So DOM content loaded and give it a function and function would return something add button dot add event listener and the event listener would be a click event add task. I'm creating this add task. Now after this make a to do input. So select the to do input, add event listener, something like key down and add a function which take a input, which take a parameter as event and if event dot key double equals to enter. If the key clicked by user is enter key, so I am giving it event dot prevent default and call the add task. It is a function. Now after this give it a delete button dot add event listener, give it a click, display tasks. So display dot tasks and call this function. After this function create another function that says function add task. Okay, now this function create a const variable name new task equals to do input dot value dot trim, not Arial value dot trim. Okay, now if new task, if the new task is not equals to the blank string, if it's not empty, okay, let's make it like this. If it's not empty, if it is empty, then I'm doing to do dot push, a push operation about an object. So object would be text new task, not next task, new task, and a disabled would be false. So it's a boolean. After this save to local storage. So save to local storage, call this function. Now to do input dot value would be empty string and display task call it again. Now create a function display task. So I'm gonna give a function named display task with some properties that says to do list dot inner html equals to an empty string to do dot for each. So make a for each. Okay, give it a element, so I'm calling it item and an index. create a variable const p equals to document dot create element. The element would be a paragraph tag. Now p dot inner html would be something in this backtick, so that would be div with a class name. So class equals to do container and with an input, so input tag input with type checkbox, type equals to checkbox, class equals to do checkbox, id would be input $, a JavaScript element would be an index. After this index I'm gonna add a $, and just after this items dot disabled, if it is true make it checked, if it is not an empty string. After this close it, closing it. Now create a paragraph tag with the id equals to do and a JavaScript. So index, give it a class like $items not imt item dot disabled, check the disabled, if it is true disabled, and if it's not empty string. After this give it a on click. Okay, on click event would be edit task, that again gives me an index, a JavaScript element index. After this create element like item dot text and close this paragraph tag, and again close this div also. After this p dot query selector and select the to do checkbox dot add event listener. That event listener would be a change event listener, and it will run a function, an arrow function, that is a toggle task. Give it the index. Now close this one, give it a semicolon. Now after this to do task passing the index, add the to do list dot append child and give it the paragraph tag. After this add the to do count dot text count dot text content equals to do dot length. Okay, after this create another function and give it some name like edit task. Okay, that would be a function, so I'm using the function keyword. Edit task will take a parameter as index. Now const to do item equals to document dot get element by id and select the to do with the index of this. Now make it a functional component, so I'm using the backticks. After selecting this create a const existing text equals to do and again pass the index dot text. Now const input element equals to document dot create element, and the element would be an input tag. Okay, after this input element dot add event listener would be blur. Okay, and it will run a function something like const updated text equals to input element dot value dot trim. Okay, and that would be a function. Now if updated text exists, so we will do to do and passing the index dot text equals to updated text and save the local storage. So save local storage, run the function. After this run again a function display task. Okay, now create a function. Okay, after this create a function. The function name would be toggle. Okay, function toggle task taking an parameter as index. Now to do index dot disabled equals to not to do index dot disabled. Okay, now save the local file, local storage, call the display task. Now create another function. So function delete all tasks, make the to do as empty array, save the local storage, display task, call the display task function. Now create another function that save to local storage. Local storage dot set item would be a to do with a JSON dot stringify and pass the to do here. Now let's see if it's working properly. So I'm here, add a task. This is a to do task. Now click on the add button. It's not working properly. Let's see why not. Here we just spelled it wrong, so it would be delete button and delete all. Then after this, go to the script.js file and just correct this one. So I'm checking the exact case, and after this, instead of displaying task, we need to delete all task, and after this we need to display the task. So now let's see how does it looks like. So this is a task, and when I add it, I can check it, I can delete them all. So yeah, it's working properly. Now if you like this tutorial, make sure to like this video, share this video with your friends, comment if you have any queries, and subscribe for more such amazing content. This is Coding signing out. Bye bye.